a common thread that I heard in both of your responses is the effect of this definition, be it having been implemented or not. So I want to imagine for a moment that this motion does pass in the Waterloo Region District School Board. And I have 3 real-life situations that I'm thinking are applicable to our schools and our classrooms. And I want to talk about the implications of what this definition will be and how we'll see it folded on these situations. So the first one that I have is a student decides to cover the Nakba, or the Declaration of the State of Israel, in 1948. As they are presenting, they say that they believe, based on their research, that Israel exists against the UN's Security Council resolutions. Will this student be disciplined for being anti-Semitic, or what do we think will happen to this student?
I want to jump in. I definitely think in every way they will be called out for it, and for being anti-Semitic. And I do believe that this is, of course, IHRA's one of the many definitions that it has is basically going against any kind of historical date that Israel has impacted Palestinians with. And of course they don't want to hear about it. They want to slowly erase our history, and they slowly want to censor what we're speaking up about what Israel has done in the past to Palestinians. So in every way, this does go against the IHRA definition, just because we are targeting Israelis, and we are basically proclaiming them as committing crimes and committing genocide against Palestinians in the past and until this day. And they don't want to be called out for that.
Go ahead, Sheryl.
I was just going to say that there is, in most of Western society in general, there's what you might call compulsory Zionism, that the Zionist narrative is the acceptable narrative. I don't want to get into the reasons why that is. There are many, many, many reasons. The minute that is challenged in any way, it is seen as anti-Semitic, despite the fact, as Nur has pointed out, there is ample historical evidence to the contrary, much of it produced by Jews and Israelis. So it's not as if, I think that we've ignored the Palestinian narratives that have come before the ones produced by Jews and Israelis. I mean, that's an expression of anti-Palestinian racism, that people would believe Jews over Palestinians, even though Palestinians have been documenting the Nakba for generations.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was that there is a really intentional dismissal of the actual historical record, which seems to me to be antithetical to the purpose of education, period. And to say you cannot bring this historical record forward because it is potentially anti-Semitic is so problematic from so many different angles. But just from the educational angle, it's extremely problematic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for walking us through that situation and talking about the historical component of this topic. And another realm that we may see this definition applied in is, we spoke about students, but teachers as well. And so in this situation, a teacher expresses on their Twitter account that they think Israel is an apartheid state. What is going to happen to this teacher?
I've known just one case of a Palestinian head of the medical institution at Western University, and also a professor who spoke about the Palestinian cause and who called out Israel for being what it is, an apartheid state. And they got laid off. They basically got called out for it, and they're like, you can't speak about this in a political manner, leave politics kind of out of it. And you notice that every time you bring up the Palestinian-Israeli situation, it's always a political matter. It's not even a humanitarian aspect. It's not even a historical context that you want to speak of. So it is something very existent and absolutely terrifying for teachers who are vocal about this. And I know so many Palestinian teachers in the education department and that are vocal teachers about the Palestinian cause that are very much silenced and fear to speak up about it because, of course, they fear to lose their job.
I
So
mean,
you can't
even
basically express your identity while you're on the job either, or even dare to teach any of your students who you want them to know, you want them to learn, you want them to know the truth. You can't even bring up that subject because, of course, you fear for your job. And the thing is, this is happening at an educational institution. If this is happening at an educational institution, where else is it going to happen?
yeah, and we know from other campaigns against the IHRA, because the school boards are starting to be targets for the IHRA everywhere. So, first we had the provincial governments, and then we had the municipal governments, and now we're dealing with it at school boards, and we've had several cases. And one of the things we know is that Palestinian parents have had to work, anonymously on these campaigns for fear of reprisals against themselves and their children in the school system. So, this is such a dangerous, road to walk for so many people. I mean, there are some high profile cases like Javier Davila, who is a teacher in the TDSB, an equity coordinator, who has been libeled and removed from his job and replaced in his job, and he is now suing B'nai B'rith, which is a Jewish pro-Israel advocacy group, for libel. And hopefully he's going to win his case because they have libeled several people. They libeled a lawyer, pro-Palestinian lawyer, who has won his case. He libeled CUP W, the postal workers union, and they won their case. So there's pushback happening that is extremely important. But yeah, people are imperiled, absolutely. And I also know of a case of a private school teacher who tweeted something and was just fired. And with, of course, if you're a private school teacher, you have no union to back you up. You have nobody to back you up. You are just gone and you have no recourse, and you don't want to be vocal about it because you'll never get another job. So, these threats are really, they impact people's lives in very material ways.
And as you've both mentioned, they already have impacted people's lives. Like, this is already happening. So yeah, understood. The final situation that I want to walk through, this is actually a personal situation that happened to me, myself. And what it was is last year in one of my classes, we were having group discussions on bulletin boards using sticky notes. And on one of the sticky notes, someone wrote that Jesus was born in Palestine. And then shortly after that, another student in the classroom came and they wrote on top of the sticky note, changing Palestine to Israel. And when I came across this sticky note, I wrote on it that Israel didn't exist when Jesus was born. How do you think this situation would unfold, and like the aftermath of the situation, if it happened when this definition is applied theoretically and adopted by the school board?
It's scary to say, and it's saddening to say, because I have younger sisters in high school that are very much pro-Palestinian, that wear Palestinian sweaters, that do talk about the Palestinian cause in their classes. And it's just fearful to me to see young other students kind of say otherwise, and just kind of completely like erasing the matter of fact of what Palestine is. And I've experienced this also in my institutions at university as well, and in high school. But in university, I used to be the president of the Palestinian Cultural Club, and we literally had to call it the Palestinian Cultural Club because we couldn't be political. We had to emphasize that we're just a cultural club. We can't speak about anything politically. We just had to say that, come join us for hummus, come join us for dabke. But no, we can't hold a BDS motion. We can't do anything that's politically active, because that will again bite us back, and that will closed down and shut down our club. And we'd have Israeli students come up to us while we're having something in the auditorium showing the Palestinian map, the original 1948 Palestinian map. They'd come to us and they'd be like, that's not the map. You guys are spreading propaganda and we need the actual Israeli map now. We want it now of 2022. And I'm like, that's not the representation of what real Palestine is for me. So now when IHRA is actually implemented in the schools, it's even more problematic, because this happened to me when IHRA wasn't even implemented yet. It wasn't even introduced. So what happens now when even in younger institutions, let's say like in university institutions, like you're down for a debate, you're down for a little bit of open-mindedness, and you're down to kind of actively fight. But when it comes to high school students, it's scary because you guys are younger and we're scared that they'll just rub you off. They'll just slowly, they'll just be like, you guys are young, what do you know? So it's scary, like we want people to be able to speak up about this and have people listen to what we actually have to say. We want people to know of our existence and that we're not quieting down when it comes to fighting for what Palestine truly is and for what Israel really does towards us.
I mean, I would answer, Kenzie, that that incident doesn't violate the IHRA in any way. But if I were a teacher in the classroom and I encountered that, number one, I think it's a very good opportunity to teach about, to understand, what the debate is about. When you have that, that's a perfect, teaching tool. However, if I were a teacher who was not completely, educated about what the liabilities were, I might want to just brush it under put it under the rug and say, I'm not going I think a lot of people say, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. And that's actually some of the responses we got in our research, where people were saying, I don't teach about Palestine because I don't want to get in trouble. And I don't want, I just make a decision. I'm not going to teach about it. And these are people who, are on board politically, but they say, I'm just not going to put myself in that position. And I can see where a teacher, in the school system would say, I'm not even going to do that because who knows? I don't know whether I'm going to violate something will get said, it'll get reported, I'll be in trouble, etc. So, it creates such an atmosphere of tension around this, where you're worried about getting censored, etc., or disciplined. So it's a good example. I don't think it would be liable to be considered anti-Semitic under the IHRA, but it's the atmosphere that the IHRA creates, I think, that might make it difficult for a teacher or students as well to actually discuss that very interesting example that you bring up.
Right. Thank you. That makes so much sense. And I think it's very important to see the ways in which this definition affects students and staff and parents and just everyone in the region already, but also, if it were to be passed, the obstacles that Palestinian students often face.
They're like, we're going to start imposing anti-Palestinian racism into our curriculum.
They say it's non-binding, but we know all the kind of under the table ways that it works on people. It's just very murky.
I'm not even able to speak up about my country. Here is scary to me.